Uh, Hi. So it just occurred to me that I have never introduced myself either. So I'm going to do that right now. My name is Josefiene or Fina, which is really weird for English speaking people to pronounce. So whatever works for you. And I came to Hacks, what was it, 8 years ago? Something like that. 2012, 2013. 2014, somewhere around that. I accompanied Simon to his very first appearance in the Hex community and somehow ended up, uh, got drawn into the whole thing and just kind of never quit, I guess. And if you'd I guess if you'd asked me 8 years ago, what's going to be the thing in your life that's going to stick for the next 10 years, nobody would have said, well, this weird Hex thing. Right? It was supposed to be just a trip to Paris. I was supposed to go shopping, and now I'm here. So it kind of happens that way sometimes. So in my real life, I am an accountant and an operations manager in a small software company. We mostly do websites, e-commerce stores, things like that. It's a very small team, 15 people. And yeah, so I basically make the numbers work and see to it that the filing is done and the coffee machine gets replaced in time. Things like that. In the Hex community, it's actually kind of something similar. I ended up being sort of like the social person, or the go-between, the non-threatening person in the room that you just talked to, which is really weird to me, because when I entered the Hex community, when I was there for the first time, I was still very young. I mean, I'm still very young, but I was even younger then. I was in my early 20s. And so everybody was so nice and welcoming. And it kind of happened that after 2 or 3 days, I had spoken to everyone at the event. I knew what everyone was doing, and I started matchmaking. I started kind of going okay, so if you are into this, I've just heard from this other guy who had the same problem. Maybe you should go and sit down and talk. And that's how I ended up in the Hex community. And that's to a degree still the function that I have today. Is actually my main purpose is just to get people to talk to each other. And to kind of, the other thing I do is basically wave, smile, and say things like, we're going to do this event at such and such date. My involvement in the Hex events has, it's taken some time to evolve to where it is right now. It was very difficult. I struggled with it at the beginning because as everyone, the first question I always asked myself was well, I was very insecure and very kind of is it worth doing this? Should I do it? Would someone even be interested? I was really waiting for someone to tell me here is the thing that you should do, and yes, I love you, go and do it. It just never happened. So at some point, I had this realization of, well, nobody's ever going to tell you what to do. Nobody's also ever going to tell you what not to do. So nobody can stop you from doing anything. Nobody can stop you from inviting a bunch of people to your house and calling it a Hex event, for example. Nobody can stop you from having a meetup. Nobody can stop you from inviting your 3 best Hex friends to a bar and calling it a HaxeUp. Nobody can stop you from putting on a conference even. You don't need anyone's approval. You don't need anyone to tell you this is how it goes. You just do the best you can, right? And we worry so much about things not being perfect, right? We're so worried about what are those random people on the internet going to say? I used to have a proper meltdown about people on the Twitch chat, right? About the sound or something. That used to make me cry when someone complained about the sound. It used to make me really feel put down, but in the end, all that matters is that the people who are in the room with you at any given time have a good time, and that you make those connections and that you carry that forward. And it took me a while to find a way to make this work for me. And the way this works now is that if it's at some other place, like over here, for example, so this is how we do HaxeUps or Hax meetings. Usually what is the biggest barrier to entry for people is it's as simple as like, what do I call it? What do I put on the pictures? How do I get speakers? How do I even go about this, right? Like if you need any help with that, I can help you. I'm your girl. What I'm not gonna do is figure out your room situation, your chairs, your food, like, you know, like all the on-site stuff basically. But it's like I found that if you just got someone in your corner cheering for you and, you know, hand-holding a little bit through the ups and downs, then that's usually enough to get people going. And to this extent, like with this, we've actually had quite a few more Hax events in the last year than we've had before, because people have been very happy to take up the HaxeUp brand and like use the images and just kind of be like, oh yeah, because it's kind of like this thing that suddenly you're wearing the same t-shirt, metaphorically speaking, right? You're wearing the same hashtag. You're not alone anymore. You're like now one of several people who do this thing, and anybody who knows anything about marketing knows that social proof is a very, very strong driver towards something. So yeah, last year we had Hax events in Hong Kong, in Seattle, in Luxembourg, at my house in Linz, in London, in St. Petersburg, and I'm sure in several places of elsewhere, which I think is just fantastic. And this year we actually already had the first, I thought we were going to be the first Hax event of the year, but the people in Australia actually beat us to it. They beat us to it and by a matter of like, I don't know, 3 or 4 days. And it was just 3 people in a bar somewhere, but that counts, right? I mean, that's like 3 people who like Hax and basically met and did the Hax thing for like, 2 hours. Then we're going to have a Hax event in Culver City in California in, I believe April, right? Or March or April. And I want to highlight this one specifically because I am super stoked that it's happening. I mean, I'm stoked for everything. I'm just like super excited. But this is something, this actually addresses the whatever happened to the idea of doing XYZ. So there was Thomas who came to the Hax Seattle summits twice in a row, and he was like, I really want to get this California thing going. I want to do something in California, or like, it started like every idea starts. I guess I should do X, which is like just a guilt trip waiting to happen, right? Like, I guess I should do X. It's kind of like this thing that hangs over you and suddenly drops on your head. But he actually not only said, I guess I should do X, he actually went and organized the venue and then came to me with like, hey, do you have some logos? Like, what are the things that you use? How do you do the graphics and whatever? And now it's actually happening, and we have an event and we have a venue, and it's even, I think it's in some sort of local hacker space. So it's even potentially, so this is the thing with ideas. There's only so much any one single person can do, is willing to do, and even should do, because you should not have things in your life that just make you feel guilty and feel bad, right? Like, you should not, like, if it starts with I should, you should just scratch that sentence and just be like, no. It's like either you do or it's not that important. Either one is fine as long as you're clear and as long as you don't keep it in your head, right? So with this game jam idea, for example, like, there are tons of ideas. It's just that usually it needs one person. It just needs one person to kind of say, like, I am going to do this, or I am at least going to be the person that raises the flag and goes like, hey, I'm here. I'm going for it, right? And that doesn't mean that you have to do everything. It kind of works like a standing ovation in a theater. If you've ever like encountered the phenomenon where basically like everyone is kind of super excited and they're sitting and they're sitting and they're sitting, and it just takes one person to stand up, and suddenly you have a movement, right? So that's what we need in this community, and I need for you to understand that it doesn't take perfect. It doesn't even take the swanky boardroom. I mean, this is wonderful. This is absolutely beautiful, right? But if you don't have access to this, you have a park, you have a bar, you have a living room. There is space. You have a whole world of space. And this is what you do, right? You just stand up and wave your little flag, and people will come. Maybe not the first time. Maybe it's just going to be one the first time. Maybe two. But that's better than none. And if you never get up and never wave that little flag, nobody's ever going to know about you, right? And you are just going to feel alone. So it actually does take like just this one person, which is why the events are called HaxeUp, basically. Yeah, now just the inspirational part is over. No, just for the Linz event, actually, for this year's summit. Why is it happening in this small town somewhere on the River Rhine in Germany, where there's a serious risk of flooding? Because actually it occurred to me that since I'm the one organizing this event, I'm the one who gets to say on what terms it happens. And I don't, like, traveling is really, it's nice, but if you're traveling and organizing something, it's really difficult. If you have to drive somewhere to organize something, it's really difficult. It takes a lot out of me personally. So for me, it's like just having it where I live, in my town, right next door, is perfect. It happens to be that Linz is, if you can get to Cologne, you can get to Linz. It's really close. It's a half-hour train ride from Cologne airport. So it doesn't matter if you go to Linz or to Cologne city center. It's practically the same. If you can make it to Gamescom, you can make it to my house, basically. And the other thing is we've tried big cities. We've done big cities. We've done Paris, we've done Amsterdam, we've done Seattle. And big cities are nice. Big cities are also very expensive. And maybe it's just time for something different, because we've tried what everybody else has done before. And why not have it in a small town with pretty views and a castle and a torture chamber and good wine and I don't know. So that's why, basically, no special reason, just because it's convenient. And I hope that you're going to enjoy it. I think it's going to be something new, and I think it's going to be a really interesting space or experience for the people, because it's kind of just calmer and it leaves more space for the actual important stuff to happen. Because it's like people think they go to conferences for the talks, which is so not true. Like, the interesting and valuable thing at conferences is what happens at, well, if it's in Amsterdam, 4 a.m. Anywhere else, it's kind of like more around 11 or 12. But kind of like after all the business stuff is done, right? Because what makes Hax isn't just the compiler. What makes Hax, and what makes the Hax community a worthwhile place to be, is this human connection. And taking care of that is actually my highest priority, right? And helping people to make these links, because then, like, the only argument I've ever heard against Hax, or like the loudest one anyway, is I wish more people were using it. I wish I wasn't this alone. I wish I wasn't this weird person. And this is basically the best medicine against weird person syndrome. So you're not that weird. Like, there are like 15 others. There are 15 others here who would put on the same t-shirt. That's not alone. That's a crowd. I mean, that's a small birthday party. So, yeah, that's all. I hope to see you at my house.